Modern Love, the podcast, is supported by...
Produced by the iLab at WBUR, Boston.
From the New York Times and WBUR Boston, this is Modern Love. Stories of love, loss, and redemption. I'm your host, Meghna Chakrabarty. Last week, our team brought a live performance of the Modern Love podcast to the Huntington Theatre Company in Boston to celebrate Valentine's Day. William Jackson Harper joined us for the performance. The actor and playwright plays Chidi on the NBC show The Good Place. And he read an essay by Ryan Pfeffer called Your Dog Has Seen Me Naked.
The women I've slept with this year have had two things in common: dogs and studio apartments. I never considered the awkwardness of this combination until it was too late. Josie was first, a Chihuahua Pomeranian mix, and an emotional wreck. In her defense, she was often left alone for long periods of time, and, well, anything that small is justified in its mania. When her owner finally did come home, Josie would yap incessantly until someone petted her. She was like a furry alarm clock. Ring, 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 and then silence the moment you rolled over and laid a hand on her. That's all she wanted. One hand. You didn't even have to pet her. Any contact would do. I did not hate Josie. She wasn't mean or snobbish, as some small dogs tend to be, just in a constant fight for attention. And in that fight, neither of us was doing very well. The chemistry between her owner and me was less a firework and more an old lighter that works every seventh flick. But that didn't stop us from entering into a lazy singles agreement to end up at each other's apartments a couple of nights a week. The first time we slept together, things went smoothly, with one exception. Josie wouldn't stop barking, so her owner reached down, plucked her up, and sat her on the bed, where she became more uncomfortable as she realized what was happening. By the end, she had gone silent. Peeking over a pillow every few minutes to see if we had finished. I barely noticed her that first time. My attention was elsewhere, and having her on the bed seemed preferable to her soundtrack of high-pitched yapping. But when it happened a second, third, and eighth time, Josie grew harder to ignore. I imagine things from her perspective, especially in those horrifying moments when we made eye contact. I may not have minded as much if she was simply in the room, but on the bed, that felt too close. Plus, Josie was too small to get down on her own, so it was somewhat of a hostage situation. One night, as Josie's owner and I were switching positions, I accidentally kicked her off the I looked over my shoulder in horror to see a nose and two tiny paws fall out of sight. I was mortified. Her owner looked over and shrugged. "It's okay," she said. "She's real fluffy." And we went back at it. I could have suggested to Josie's owner that we take her off the bed, or at least put a tiny blindfold over her eyes, but I didn't want to further intrude on the intimate bond between pet and owner, a relationship stronger than the one we shared, after all. And I figured she knew Josie better than I did. Maybe that forsaken look in her eyes was normal? 2 months in, the momentum started to slow between Josie's owner and me. Things ended, as they so often do in this era, with an unanswered text. Josie wasn't the only one in the room with communication issues. The next couple of months of solitude took some adjustment. The type of reliable hookup I had with Josie's owner was a rarity for me. Losing it was like having the restaurant around the corner go out of business. Now, on quiet nights when my relationship refrigerator was bare, I had to figure out something else or go to bed hungry, usually the latter. I was relieved when I met someone months later, and even more relieved when I met her dog, Rigatoni. Like Josie, he was part Chihuahua, but he had none of her emotional hang-ups. He was a good boy, and he knew it. His strut had bounce. If I had an eighth of Rigatoni's confidence, I'd be president tomorrow. His owner and I met on a dating app, and that's how she met Rigatoni too, on some sort of pet adoption app where you swiped yes or no on animals. Under normal circumstances, being virtually selected alongside a pet may have felt unsettling, but clearly she had great taste in dogs, and it was flattering to be in such good company. Whatever quality caused her to swipe yes on Rigatoni, I hoped, was also visible in my profile. He chaperoned us on nearly every outing, and I didn't mind a bit. He came along on one of our first dates, a trip to the beach, and guarded our towel while we swam. He nestled up to my chest afterward, all sandy and warm, and I was thrilled at his approval. We ended up back at her tiny place later, and had only been kissing for a few seconds when she pulled back, gasped, and said, "You're so weird." I was horrified until I realized she was talking not to me, but to Rigatoni, who had suddenly appeared over my shoulder with a menacing look. That became the theme of our next few dates. We would be kissing, and I'd hear, "Tony," and turn around to see her dog looking like he wanted to punch me in the nose. There was nowhere to hide. The apartment was too small. I would never suggest locking him in the bathroom. She would have sooner locked me in the bathroom, and I understood. He was special. We moved from the couch to the bed. I was disappointed to learn he could jump up on his own. Rigatoni was an agile fella, and unlike Josie, was not afraid to intervene. He would never bite, but he would try to grab me with his little T-Rex arms and wrestle me away from his beloved master. "You're making everyone uncomfortable," she would shout, as he had me by the ankle like a little Greco-Roman wrestler. You could see the conflict in his face, the push and pull between obedience and protection. Right when we thought we had successfully distracted him with a toy, he would leap onto the bed like a Secret Service agent and position himself between us. But even rigatoni had his price, a meat-flavored bone that could usually buy us 20 minutes. Afterward, he would leap back onto the bed and cast disapproving looks our way until he got sleepy. Rigatoni wasn't exactly an aphrodisiac, but his heart was in the right place. If someone was going to stop me from having sex, I was glad to know the effort came from virtuous intentions. It could have been worse. When my ex-girlfriend and I used to visit my childhood home, my family dog would run into the bathroom as if he were hunting truffles, snatch my used condoms out of the trash, and then drop them in the most heavily trafficked area of our house. Courtship has never been easy for me. I have found the process to be high risk and emotionally exhausting. It hasn't helped that nature itself seems committed to my celibacy. Lately, my sex life has felt like a reverse Snow White scenario. I'm scared I'll unbutton my pants and every woodland creature within a 5-mile radius will come crashing through the window, clutching awkward middle school photos of me in their paws and talons. Whenever I meet a woman, I can't help but wonder what creature awaits in her apartment, eager to make our encounter more awkward than it already feels. I began thinking a lot about a date I went on with a woman between Josie and Rigatoni. We had talked for hours, gone from one bar to another, and watched the sunset over a pair of Moscow mules. We laughed, she snorted. I found myself listening to her instead of scrambling to think of a new topic to keep the conversation going. The hamster wheel of my mind actually stopped spinning, and when that happens, I get excited because it signals something more serious is on the horizon. I really wanted to see her again. But she had to leave town for a couple of weeks. When she got back, I tried to set up another date, but something had changed. Or maybe it was never there. Either way, she read my final text but didn't reply. And that hurt. She had a dog, too. Bubba. In pictures, he was a tank. Shoulders like a linebacker and jaws like a bear trap. Bubba lived in a house. Not a studio apartment, but I doubt that would have mattered. He looked like he could run through a brick wall like the Kool-Aid Man. Maybe I got off lucky with Bubba's owner. After all, she had the power to hurt me, and she did. But just imagine the damage he could have done.
William Jackson Harper!
So William read Ryan Pfeffer's essay, "Your Dog Has Seen Me Naked." And so when actors are kind enough to read for the podcast, we actually send them several essays
to choose from, and they get to choose the one they want to read. So why this one?
Well, I have a dog, and I have a girlfriend, and I mean, I think we've both felt judged by him more than once. So, yeah. And so I was like, I understand this deeply. So.
Well, you absolutely brought it to life. William, thank you so very much. And you can, of course, see William Jackson Harper in The Good Place on NBC.
That's William Jackson Harper reading Ryan Pfeffer's essay, Your Dog Has Seen Me Naked. Well, is Ryan still bribing rigatoni with meat bones? We'll catch up with him after the break. So how does it feel to find out that your story about your sex life is going to be published in the New York Times?
I was thrilled and then sort of terrified at the prospect of friends and family reading this thing. And my mom read it. She had to have a couple glasses of wine, she said, before she could finally work her way through more than the first two sentences. But she eventually got through it and was really proud, and that was so nice. And the essay ended up dropping a week before Christmas, I think. So I was kind of upset at the timing. I was like, great, now everyone's going to read this and I have to be around extended family members. I'm going to have to answer questions from aunts and uncles and grandma about this strange article that ended up in the New York Times.
Although Ryan's not sure his grandma has read the piece.
We've debated internally as a family if this was safe for grandma. And I think we will show it to her eventually, but maybe in a controlled environment, possibly using the wine technique that worked on my mom. I think we will show it to her.
Ryan is still with Rigatoni's owner, and his relationship with Rigatoni is going well. And Ryan says that winning over the dog is essential to winning over the owner.
I mean, if you don't have the dog's support, good luck. I would much rather have a dog like me than a dad like me. It's just no contest for me, because you're going to see that dog so much more than you're going to see the dad. And that's what made me sort of recognize this pattern in my own dating, was that the dog all of a sudden for me became this very important thing to impress. And I was very conscious of wronging it in any way or offending the dog in any way, because that would translate to the owner tenfold. And there might be no coming back from that.
And Rigatoni gets along with Ryan's cat, Potato. And Potato hasn't had to deal with some of the same logistical issues that Rigatoni has.
Thankfully, I have a door as well, so I haven't run into the issues with Potato that I have with some other animals, but it's been a great experience, yeah.
Ryan says he's still bribing Rigatoni when necessary.
Yeah, we still use the bone with Rigatoni. But, getting better. He's very trainable, but Rigatoni doesn't have a lot of experience with this sort of stuff either. He's only been in this particular apartment for, I think, about a year. So we're all learning in this situation.
That's Ryan Pfeffer. He's an associate editor at Time Out Miami. Here's Daniel Jones, editor of the Modern Love column for the New York Times.
Well, one thing I loved right away about Ryan's piece was how refreshingly honest he is about the awkwardness of sex and hooking up, and in a way, like the dogs contribute to having these encounters be less fraught. Like to have that kind of distraction to, these could otherwise be sort of nervous, what do I do next kind of encounters. But when you're in the middle of this sort of serious moment and you realize there's sort of a dog leering over your shoulder, like judging what you're doing and trying to interrupt it in a way, it can be kind of a relief. And it's kind of a relief for the reader, too, to have this sense of comedy and whatever injected into what are just like casual affairs.
We've got more from our live show after the break. Here's our musical guest, Haley Thompson King, performing at our live show.
I can still hear you call out from a dream as you sleep at the back of my knee. Softly talking to the rabbit through the window. Sometimes you wake with a start, and I wonder, was it about me? Was it ever about me? I poured glass for you, Elijah. Hope you come today. I
That was Haley Thompson King performing the song Elijah at our live show this past week. Her latest record is Psychotic Melancholia, and you can get it at haleythompsonking.com. Next week, Christina Hendricks.
On more than one occasion, I have rolled my bright yellow carry-on suitcase into the office on a Monday morning to the confusion of my coworkers. "Where did you go this weekend?" they would ask. "The Hamptons?" "No," I would reply. 95th and Broadway.
And before we wrap up, I just want to say that I personally dedicate this week's Modern Love episode to someone I met at our live show in Boston. I'll just call her V for now. V told me that she listens to Modern Love every week while getting chemotherapy at a major Boston hospital, and that she and her other patients all listen to the podcast together once a week. So V, this episode I'm dedicating to you, and we're all pulling for you and your fellow patients there in the hospital. Modern Love is a production of the New York Times and WBUR, Boston's NPR station. It's produced, directed, and edited by Jessica Alpert, Caitlin O'Keefe, and John Perotti. Original scoring and sound design by Matt Reed. Special thanks to William Jackson Harper, Elle Borders, Mariana Basham, Michael Masso, Peter Dubois, and the entire staff at the Huntington Theatre Company. The idea for the Modern Love podcast was conceived by Lisa Tobin. Iris Adler is our executive producer. Daniel Jones is the editor of Modern Love for the New York Times and advisor to the show. Music for the podcast, courtesy of APM. I'm Meghna Chakrabarty. See you next week.